Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? First order of business. Roll call. Very good. I see we have a little over 100 people watching right now. Fantastic. So, there's only half the number of likes. I mean, this is this is unacceptable. Okay, this is unconscionable. So I need you guys to hit the like button. It helps fight the algorithm and so on. Second order of business. What is the second order of business? I don't know. We're going to get down to business. We're going to talk about what happened in Lebanon. Because, man, this is like... It's terrible. It's terrible. In every sense of the word. So, I just want to dive right in, okay? I just want to dive right in. I like that when you guys you're in the comments, you're saying where you're tuning in from. That's very good. That's lovely. In any case, let's get down to business because I want to discuss what happened in Beirut. Okay. Lovely. Ready? Let's do this. In Beirut, you had what the media are calling clashes. And this is, of course, very interesting framing because this wasn't a clash, okay? Let's break it down very simply. October 14th, you had a protest in front of the Palace of Justice. The people who came to protest were supporters of Hezbollah, of the Amal movement, who's an ally of Hezbollah, and they came there to protest against a judge, Tariq Bitar, because this judge is, he's involved with the investigation regarding the Beirut port explosion last year. You remember when the port blew up, right? So he's involved in the investigation, and people feel that he's extremely biased. They feel that the investigation is being tampered with by the Americans, specifically the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, because her name is Dorothy Shia, right? Or Dorothy Shea. This is her picture. So, she was implicated in a plot to frame Hezbollah with the ammonium nitrate, with this explosion, as reported by Al Akhbar, which is a Lebanese daily. And obviously, this is not the first time that she's meddling inside of Lebanon's affairs. I mean, she always does this, right? When it was Hezbollah bringing in fuel, she immediately called up Michel Aoun, the president. She's like, no, let the United States bring in gas from Egypt, electricity from Jordan, which they never wanted to do before. So anyway, people are angry, and they show up to the Palace of Justice in Tayoune district. And then snipers start shooting at them. You have snipers on the rooftops in the surrounding buildings who are sniping the people down below. And this is there's a very clear intent here, which is to kill, because you had 7 people who were martyred, and most of them, it's headshots, things like that. So, this is not like something to do with self-defense or dispersing a crowd. No, they were there to kill people. And actually, just one thing. One of the people who was killed, I'll get to him in a second, but, people are wondering who's behind this. And, I mean, the consensus here, it's widely believed, it's widely assumed in Lebanon that the people behind this are the Lebanese Forces militia, right? So when we say Lebanese Forces, you shouldn't confuse that with the Lebanese army, even though it sounds like that. It's something completely different. So the Lebanese Forces... This is a right-wing Christian militia that was, founded during the Lebanese Civil War. And, I mean, when you know who they are, like, this should not surprise you. Like, this massacre a few days ago, where they killed 7 people, well, 6, and wounded dozens, this is nothing compared to the other things they did, even though it's still horrific. But they have a history of committing massacres. Literally massacres. They collaborated with the Israelis, which is, I mean, this alone is unbelievable. You know, like how can you call yourself Lebanese and then you go and work with someone who's invading your country? This is unbelievable, right? This is the definition of treachery. You work with an occupier. So, you know, the Lebanese forces, they used to receive weapons, funding, you name it, from the Israelis. And with the Israelis, they went in and committed numerous massacres. The most famous one was in 1982, right? So they killed 3,500 people. This is what I'm talking about, right? Sabra and Shatila massacre. So they killed 3,500 Palestinian refugees and Shia Lebanese in Beirut. You know, in plain sight of the Israelis knew this was going to happen. They let it happen. You know, they did this together. 3,500 people they murdered. This is one of the massacres. This is one. There are others. So when they kill 7 people, I mean, this is not surprising at all, right? And the head of this Lebanese Forces militia, Samir Ja'ja, who's a real piece of work. You know, you can see him over here with with Mike Pompeo, which is, you know, really fitting. So he's on the left, and, you know, he literally assassinated the Lebanese prime minister. He's killed so many people. It's unbelievable. Like, the fact he's not in jail is crazy. He was in jail for 11 years, but he was given amnesty in 2005, and, you know, they released him. He literally assassinated the Lebanese prime minister. Could you imagine someone in the United States killing the president and then committing massacres, and then they get out and they're free? Oh yeah, wait, they are the president. No, but seriously, this is quite crazy, right? That you actually have a guy like this who's walking around free. And so basically, the Lebanese forces, this right wing, this fascist, it's a fascist militia, like, really, by definition. They're a rival of Hezbollah. They don't like Hezbollah. They don't like the Amal movement. So, you know, there's always a kind of a power struggle. And I mean, Lebanese politics is complicated enough to begin with. But the thing to understand is that, as we said, they've collaborated with Israel. What about today? They collaborate with the United States. They collaborate with Saudi Arabia. Like, this guy's, you know, openly funded by Saudi Arabia. So, you know, they have a history of betraying their own people and working with other countries, with other powers to screw over Lebanon. Okay? And so this investigation into the port explosion, you must understand something. They want to pin this on Hezbollah. Do you know why? Because for decades, they've been trying to disarm Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the only thing that is stopping Israel from shitting on Lebanon. Okay? Who liberated South Lebanon? Not the Lebanese army, certainly not the Lebanese Forces militia, Hezbollah, right? Not even the UN could do that. My parents were serving there in UNIFIL in South Lebanon. Not even the UN could liberate South Lebanon. It was Hezbollah, okay? So in 2006, the Israelis tried to screw around again with Lebanon, and Hezbollah pushed them back, blew them out of the water, literally. So they're scared of Hezbollah because they haven't bombed Lebanon since. Just to give you an idea. So they really want to disarm Hezbollah. And one of the ways they want to do that is to pin the whole port explosion on Hezbollah. So see, they were storing such and such ammonium nitrate. They were storing weapons. They're a danger to society. We have to get rid of their weapons, so on and so on. But it's not about the port explosion. It's not. They didn't actually have anything to do with it. It's just because Israel doesn't want any resistance when they try to invade Lebanon or attack Lebanon. The United States doesn't want any resistance when they fund terrorists in Syria. You know, like Hezbollah's been fighting in that theater as well, inside Syria against Al-Qaeda, against ISIS. So the U.S. and Israel, they don't want any more resistance to their imperialist projects. And the Lebanese Forces militia and other actors inside Lebanon, they want power. They want to ascend to power. So what do they want to do? They want to kill off the competition because Hezbollah is very popular. So they're trying to pin the port explosion on them. And, you know, they don't like it that people are coming out and protesting against, the involvement of not just this corrupt judge, but, the U.S. ambassador. So it's a very politicized thing. Regardless what you think, let's say that you don't agree with any of that. Let's say that, you are 100% convinced that Hezbollah did the port explosion. Okay, what gives you the right to shoot at protesters, though? Because you must understand, these people were unarmed, and this is a lie that they've been repeating in the media, in Lebanese media, international media. They've been saying that people came to the protests with weapons. They even have videos. Look. So You can see here, they say Hezbollah and their supporters marched with guns protesting over Beirut port blast judge. And this is, I mean, this is a huge, huge lie, because what happened here, this is after the snipers started killing people. These are the martyred. This is after. So after the snipers began shooting people, then you had MS supporters, Hezbollah supporters coming with weapons from nearby districts to defend the protesters. That's a huge difference. Just to give you an idea, one of the victims you can see here in the bottom right is a mother. She was in her home. She got shot standing at the window in her own home, waiting for her kids to come back from school. So she wasn't even at the protest, never mind with a weapon. So how do you explain her death? You can't. She was murdered. She wasn't at the protest. She was literally just standing in her own home, and they shot her. They killed her. So this lie that people came with weapons is completely absurd. Even the Lebanese army, you know, they put out a tweet here saying that protesters were shot at. They didn't say armed personnel were shot at or armed protesters, just protesters. And the Minister of Interior also confirmed this. So this is a massacre. This is a massacre. It's a terrorist attack. Call it what you want. It's an ambush, but it's not a clash. A clash is when you have two sides, two people who are, you know, fighting with each other. And maybe you had that afterwards, you know, because as we showed you, when people came to defend the protesters afterwards. But what happened initially, it's an ambush, you know, when, for example, the police show up somewhere after someone's been murdered, you don't call it a clash because the police are firing back at the criminal. It's still a murder. It's still an ambush, right? So, I mean, just look at how they've been portraying this in the mainstream media. It's not just in English language media, even in Lebanon, because again, you know, Lebanon is very fractured. You have various parties, various newspapers with their own affiliations, and so you have of course people in Lebanon who are skewing the facts. But let me just show you a few headlines. This is from Al Jazeera. They say Beirut armed clashes. Like, this is so vague. Beirut armed clashes rattle distressed residents. Dude, what is this fucking headline? This could be from any year, literally any year in Lebanon. I don't know if that's 2021. I don't know if this is 1984. I have no clue what this fucking headline is from. It's so vague. It's so vague. You know why they're doing this? I'll tell you in a second. Here's another one from the New York Times. What did the New York Times say? Deadly clashes in Beirut escalate fears over Lebanon's dysfunction. Again, I have no clue what this means. This could be from any fucking year. Is this 2004? Is it 1999? I have no clue. What year is this? Right? This is in the Washington Post. Day-long firefight racks Beirut, evoking memories of Lebanon's civil war. Now they're inching a bit closer. This is correct, because what's so shocking, what's really distressing about this is these scenes. I mean, dude, I was watching the gun battle live on El Mayadeen. Right? So, like, I was watching it live. You had bullets going off. Like, it's ridiculous. People firing RPGs. It really looked like Lebanon's civil war. It really looked like that again. And this is really sad. I mean, this is really messed up. You know, Lebanon had a civil war for 15 years. I mean, the massacres I told you about were part of that, of course. Israel invading Lebanon, occupying Lebanon is part of that. There's so many bad things that happened, right? And so it's very upsetting for people to see that, of course, you know, of course. And no less on these streets. I mean, this area, it was on these very streets where the Lebanese civil war was taking place, right? So it's especially reminiscent. But the thing is, they're keeping these headlines vague because they don't want to tell you who the victims are. They don't want you to know that Hezbollah protesters were shot at, because you're supposed to hate Hezbollah. Most people don't know why. They just, you know, oh, Hezbollah terrorist. Like that's it, right? So they can't tell you that Hezbollah protesters who were unarmed, who were protesting peacefully, were shot at, were ambushed. Because then you would see that this doesn't match with what they usually tell you, where Hezbollah is the bad guy. It doesn't match. So they've been keeping it intentionally vague. Now, I can assure you, if the roles were reversed, and this wouldn't happen, but if Hezbollah had shot at unarmed protesters belonging to the Lebanese forces, it would be in the title. You would see Hezbollah in the title. They would say Hezbollah fired at unarmed protesters. You would fucking see that shit, and you know that. But they didn't mention Lebanese forces here. They didn't even mention who the victims are. You have no clue what year this is from, no context. So, you know, there's no lack of words. They're just doing this on purpose. And as I mentioned, one of the victims was actually killed by the Lebanese army. So this is breaking news from a few hours ago, from earlier today, where CCTV footage was released. I'm not going to show it because YouTube won't let me. And you can see the Lebanese army. I don't know if it's accidentally. I have no clue. They're investigating it. And the CCTV footage is indeed real because, as I said, the army has put out a tweet saying they're investigating it now. So, I mean, it's, you know, it lends credence to the fact that it's real. It's legitimate video. And, of course, it's the guy was 17. Muhammad Tamer is his name. And I wanted just to show you the other victims over here, the other martyrs. There are 7 now, right? 7 in total. And as I said, Muhammad was killed by the Lebanese army. But, you know, if you're going to say these were clashes, when you have a clash, there should be casualties on both sides, shouldn't there? If you have a firefight or a clash, like as they're calling it, shouldn't there be wounded on the other side? You know, whoever's shooting at these protesters, there isn't. There are dozens of wounded, 7 people martyred, and they are Shia Muslims. They're Hezbollah Amal supporters. This is a fact. This is a fact. And so, like I said, this is perfectly in line with the behavior of the Lebanese Forces militia. Like, you need to understand something. What they're trying to do here is they want to start a civil war. They want it to be about Shia versus Sunni and Muslims versus Christians. This has nothing to do with that. You know, these Lebanese Forces militia, they killed everyone. They've killed Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims. They've killed Christians like themselves, right? They claim to be Christians. They've killed other Christians. They've killed Armenians, Palestinians. They kill everyone. They're fucking mercenaries. They're murderers. This is a fact. It's a fact. Samir Jaja is found guilty of assassinating so many goddamn people. I can't even count them all to you. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So this is nothing to do with, you know, they want it to be a sectarian. They want to start a sectarian war and plunge Lebanon into chaos again, because this would benefit many actors. As we talked about, it would benefit Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, the United States. They all want this because Lebanon is home to Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is a pillar of the resistance. They want to weaken the resistance. And this is so important to understand. You are never going to hear what I'm about to tell you put into context in the mainstream media or even in independent media. Look at what happened in the last week. This is so important to understand. First, in Syria, Israel and the United States bombed Syria twice in the span of a week, south of Palmyra, okay? They killed 1 Syrian soldier. They wounded 3 others. Then in Iraq, you had the elections. You had election rigging. You had fighters belonging to the resistance, to the Hashd al-Sha'bi, the Popular Mobilization Forces, who were hampered from voting, right? They had to go travel thousands of miles. You know, I'm exaggerating, but they had to go back to their hometowns to actually be able to participate. They came up with these weird rules at the last second, trying to kneecap the resistance vote inside of Iraq. And then we had this shooting in Lebanon. Right? So 7 people, Shia Muslims, supporters of the resistance of Hezbollah of Amal, shot dead in broad daylight. In Afghanistan, you had 2 mosques that were blown up in Kunduz and in Kandahar. Over 100 people killed or wounded, predominantly Shia Muslims, which is, you know, to provoke Iran, surely. So you have all of these things, 4 major attacks happening in the span of a week. It's very clear who this is aimed at. This is aimed at not just Shia Muslims. It's aimed at the whole resistance. You need to understand this because they want to divide people on sectarian lines. It's not about that. It's about anti-imperialism. It's about resisting occupiers. You know, the Israeli occupiers, the American occupiers, the Saudis who are their puppets. So this is really important to understand. They've been launching coordinated attacks trying to weaken the resistance in all of these countries. So this is really... this is really important to put that into context to understand what's happening. You have to understand also that Lebanon has elections coming up soon. So Samir Jaja, the head of the Lebanese militia forces, this right-wing Christian fascist militia, he knows that he's dead in the water. He has no chance of winning that election. And there are several parties in Lebanon who don't stand a chance, really. And they know that Hezbollah is more popular than them. They're trying to turn public opinion against Hezbollah. What they're trying to do with this attack, they were in Tayune, they were trying to provoke Hezbollah into retaliating. Because if Hezbollah had shot back, and they didn't, you know, they would say, look, Hezbollah is using their weapons against their own people. We have to disarm them. You get the idea? And Hezbollah released a statement with the Amal movement, specifically asking people, do not fucking respond, do not retaliate, don't do anything. Don't do anything in response to these murders, because that's exactly what they want. They want to point the finger then and say, oh, look, Hezbollah is being violent. They want to plunge Lebanon into a civil war. So they know the game here. They know the game here. This is a ruse. It's a provocation. It's trying to get Hezbollah to retaliate, to cause chaos, and they didn't fall for it. And again, they're also, with the elections coming up, they want to turn public opinion against Hezbollah. So you have multiple things here, trying to disarm them, trying to vilify them, trying to sink their chances in the election. It's you know, for God's sake, you know, you're never going to hear anyone break it down like that, the way it needs to be broken down, except maybe in Arabic media. But again, you have this huge divide. So that's what I'm here for, because you're never going to get this on CNN, on New York Times. They can't even report the basic facts. They can't even tell you who was shot. Most people read this headline, they have no fucking clue what's going on. No clue. Like, I mean, what does this clash mean? Were they fighting with you know, swords? Was it a clash with crossbows? What the fuck does this mean? Who was killed here? I have no idea what's happening. I have no idea what year this is from. It's on purpose. They keep it vague on purpose. All right. So I'll just end on one note here, which is, you can see the difference again between the mentality, the policy. Hezbollah would never use its own guns to kill other Lebanese. Everyone in Lebanon has guns. Like, you need to understand this. Everyone in Lebanon has guns. Lebanon is like the Wild West, but in West Asia. So, you know, but everyone has guns. The difference is how they use them. Hezbollah is resisting the Israelis, who are invaders. You know, the terrorist groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, who have been funded by the United States and the West. The Lebanese Forces militia use their guns to kill other Lebanese. They use their guns to kill Armenians. They use their guns to kill Palestinians. They use their guns to kill other Christians. They say we're Lebanese Christian, and they go and kill other Lebanese Christians. They have no values. There's no level to which they won't stoop. So they will kill anyone and everyone if it means consolidating power and advancing their own agenda. And they will even collaborate with Israel. I mean, what more do I need to tell you? Like, what more do I need to tell you? They collaborated with Israel to massacre Palestinian refugees. How fucking low can you stoop? I really can't think of many things lower than that. So this is who they are. This is their legacy. This is Samir Jaja. So when he goes massacring Lebanese in broad daylight in Beirut, this is business as usual, right? Make no mistake, because no one would be so ignorant and crazy to do something like that other than him. And of course, at the behest of who? The United States, Saudi Arabia, Israel. These are his backers. Make no mistake. So this is very tragic that these people were killed. And, you know, these attempts to blame, this is really crazy, like these kinds of tweets, these kinds of comments over here, you know, saying that Hezbollah would burn down the country. Hezbollah, they're the victims. They were shot at. What are you talking about? Like, you know, even when unarmed protesters are shot at, they want to victim blame and make them out to be the villains here. This is insane. This is insane. So, well, I mean, I think it's of course good that Lebanon has not, that it didn't escalate. Thank God, because it could have ended up being much worse. But this is really weird that the army killed someone. So what is that? Why? I saw the video. Why on earth did they do that? This guy, again, was also unarmed. They just shot him. So this is really terrible. And the other protesters as well. Really horrific stuff. So, you know, the next time they tell you that these people were armed, they shot a mother in her own home. She wasn't even at the goddamn protest, let alone carrying weapons. What are you talking about? They make up the wildest fucking lies to justify killing other people. It's insane. It's insane. You should go watch also Rania Khalek's video, and here my colleague Marwa Osman, she did a great thread on Samir Jaja's crimes, all the massacres that he's done. This is who he is. Like, this is who his militia, his party is. Right? Just, it's so long, I can't even read it to you. Just thousands and thousands of people killed. This is who they are. So I just wanted to break this down for you, because it is so important to put it in the context of who is doing the shooting. Who are these Lebanese forces? What have they done in the past? What is the agenda that they're trying to accomplish? Who is backing them? And it's so important to put this into context of the investigation, which has been corrupted and meddled in by the United States, and the elections that are coming up soon, and this attempt to attack the resistance on several fronts in Syria, in proximity to Iran, in Iraq, and now in Lebanon. This is very important to understand this. You have to put it into context. And these attempts by the media to obfuscate and to hide, it's so pathetic. It's comical. It really is. So I just wanted to break it down clearly for you, and I hope that kind of clears things up and helps you to understand what happened more clearly. So we got 239 people watching. Welcome. We only have 181 likes, though. This is scandalous. Okay, this is scandalous. So make sure we have 241 likes as well. We have a few comments over here. I want to thank South87 says, keep it up, bro. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support and keeping the channel going. We have another one over here from Kristen, a bunch of peace symbols. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much, Kristen. I'm trying to make sure that I get everyone because it's not loading here. I think, give me a second. I'm refreshing the page. Frank, thank you so much for your generous contribution. Frank says, keep up the great work. I mean, I'm humbled hearing those comments, and I always will continue what I'm doing. We have another one here from Florin. Good to see you, Florin. Thank you so much for the donation. I'm glad you were able to drop by. Just give me a second. I'm just checking if anyone sent anything else, because I don't want to miss your questions or comments or something. Yeah, so we have a tip on PayPal. This is from Mary. Mary says, keep up the fantastic work. Good job. Thank you, Mary. You're very kind again. You guys make me blush, but I'm very grateful. And if you have any questions, you guys have any questions about what we just talked about or other things, I mean, just go ahead, just shoot. I'm more than happy to answer them. I just actually finished... I actually just finished covering this about Lebanon, what just happened there for my television program on Press TV. So that is going to come out tomorrow. That will broadcast tomorrow. Definitely make sure you go check it out. The URL is different because the United States literally stole the website. So it's not presstv.com anymore. It's presstv.ir. Or you can just go on Google and you type Richard Medhurst to communicate. And you will find my television program. You'll find this episode out tomorrow night. And where I break it down. I also had a great guest on. I had Zainab al-Safar. She's a wonderful journalist from Lebanon. And yeah, you should really watch it. Last week I had Stanley Cohen on. He's legendary. I'm gonna put up the full interview here on YouTube soon because we had a really long talk about Israel entering the African Union. Yeah, you heard that correctly. What the fuck? Apparently Israel has observer status in the African Union. I mean, they had it in the previously, 20 years ago. They had it before the Organization of African Unity. I think that's what it was called. It was disbanded and then they formed the African Union. And so for 20 years, Israel's been trying to get back in and get its observer status. Like, it's just insane. They want to normalize themselves with everyone. But that was a great talk with Stanley. He's wonderful. So all of this will be up soon, and I'm very excited for that. Kat says, thank you for helping me understand such a complicated region. I always leave more informed. Much love. I'm very humbled hearing that, and you're most welcome. I was just joking to myself earlier that, if you think Syrian politics or Syria is complicated, I mean, Lebanon is, don't even get me started, man. Lebanon is way more complicated. It's really, well, because, Lebanon and Syria are, of course, neighbors. They have a lot of common, everything, common food, dialect, culture, history. But of course, they are also very different in some ways. And, the political climate in Lebanon is wild. I mean, it's really, even I have difficulty understanding sometimes what the fuck is going on. I think it's complicated on purpose because you have so many foreign actors involved. And this is, of course, the part, I think Rania said this is the part where people say, yes, Hezbollah, it's Iran. Iran are meddling inside Lebanon. No, there's a big difference here. When we talk about Iran and Hezbollah are partners. Okay, Iran is not dictating to Lebanon, to Hezbollah what to do in Lebanon. On the other hand, if you look at Samir Jaja, you look at the Lebanese Forces militia, Israel tells them what to do. They do the dirty work for Israel. This is a goddamn black on white fact. It's on paper. The massacre, the Shatila massacre. They sent the Lebanese forces in the refugee camp on purpose, knowing full well they would kill the Palestinians for them. So this is astronomically different, right? This is just one example that I'm giving you. Never mind what's happening now. So, there's a difference between being an errand boy, which is what the Lebanese forces are, and other actors are in Lebanon for the United States, for Israel, for Saudi Arabia. And there's a difference between being a partner where Hezbollah and Iran are partners. Do you understand? So when we talk about foreign interference, I mean, this is so ridiculous. So another thing that I think I mentioned briefly, but I'm going to underscore it again, is that what did Hezbollah do recently? They brought in fuel from Iran, right? They brought fuel to Lebanon because Lebanon has this terrible economic crisis. What did the Lebanese forces do? They went and shot people in broad daylight. Like, do you see the disconnect here? Like, it's regardless what you think of either one, these are facts. These things happened, and you can see the disconnect there. You can see the difference between the two in their behavior and mentality. It's astonishing, and this is even without considering the past. So anyway, I don't want to ramble for too long. I would like to, but I'm trying to keep it as concise as possible so it's easy to understand. And man, the mainstream media, they're so good at lying. They're so good at keeping people in the dark. They're so fucking dishonest. Really, like. It's crazy. You go and you read the headlines, the articles, they paint an entirely different picture. And it's not just in the English language, unfortunately. It's also in Arabic. You have, like I said, some people, some I don't want to use any Pompeo language here and say malign actors. No, but you have some people who are, who don't have the best intentions. Let's say it that way. Who are, of course, muddying the waters and trying to paint things in a different light. An ambush is now a clash, etc., etc. So, Marvin says, ramble on, Syrian ambassador. Are you calling me the Syrian ambassador, or do you mean the U.S. ambassador to Syria? Because I'll ramble about that. Yeah, he's an interesting one. This is something that I think is worth mentioning. So just like Dorothy Shea, the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, is meddling inside of Lebanon's investigation into the port explosion in Beirut and other things. She has a history of this. This is a common trend. You look at the U.S. embassy in Moscow, they were telling people, they were providing people with protest routes, which is incredible. Could you imagine if the Russian embassy in America, in the United States, was telling protesters which streets to take? Like, you would never hear the end of it on MSNBC. Rachel Maddow, her head would explode. So in Syria, this was also the same thing. You had the U.S. ambassador, Robert Ford. He would walk amongst the protesters. So this is back in the early days of the war, 2011, right? Or Arab Spring, as they want you to call it. But Arab Spring, you could. Yeah, Egypt and Tunisia, but not Libya and Syria. That wasn't an Arab Spring. That was, Western intervention. So he would walk amongst the protesters, like just openly calling for the president of the country that is hosting him to be ousted. I need to explain to you how fucking insane this is, because if you go, like, just think of this simply. If you go to someone's house, just as a guest, like you get invited to someone's house, and then you are telling the owner of the house to get the fuck out of their own house. I mean, like, this is insulting. Just on a basic level, right? So what do you think? How does that come across when you are representing another country? You are a diplomat, and you come, to a foreign country that is hosting you and your diplomatic mission, and then you are meddling in the internal affairs of the country. This is faux pas. You cannot do this. right? It doesn't matter what you think of the ambassador or what you think of Syria. This is, in general, this is not something you do. This is extremely rude. It's extremely embarrassing for your own country to do that, to meddle in someone else's affairs. You don't do that. And of course, I'm saying officially, obviously, most embassies, they're spy stations. Their whole job is to meddle. So let's not kid each other. But they're so shameless that they openly do it. And that's what I'm talking about, that they openly come out. They're in the street with the protesters saying that the president should be like this. You really have to have some balls. I always say, imagine if the roles were reversed. Just imagine if the Syrian ambassador to the United States was walking in the street and saying the American president should be removed. Walking with extremists, Proud Boys, or whatever these fucking groups are. Could you imagine if an ambassador was walking with them and calling for the government to be disbanded? Like, you would never tolerate that. You would not tolerate the Russian ambassador doing that. You would not tolerate the Lebanese ambassador doing that. So why is it okay for the American ambassador to do that to other countries? It's a real double standard. It's a trend that I've seen. It's obviously it wasn't born yesterday, but it is an interesting one. And now what we're seeing in Lebanon with this port investigation, like I said, it's been reported in Lebanese media, specifically Al-Akhbar, that Dorothy Shea, who's the U.S. ambassador, she was trying to implicate Hezbollah with the ammonium nitrate, which is what blew up. It's the chemical that destroyed the port in Beirut. And I mean, I mean, this is astonishing on its own. But she has a history of doing these things. Others have referred to it as witchcraft, which, is it's not too far from that. But you really have to pay attention to how brazen the behavior is. It's very important to see this, because it's a clear double standard. And if these countries did something like that, I mean, they wouldn't dare in the first place. They wouldn't dare. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that briefly. Right, so I'm just going through your comments because, we're having a good time over here. I haven't done a Q&A in a while, so we need to do a separate one afterwards. But anyway, Carlos says, so Israel can participate in the Eurovision contest and be an observer in the African Union? Yes, and apparently they can also participate in the Euro Cup. I don't know if that's still true, but I remember when I was younger, I used to see Israel in the qualifying matches. I don't know if that's still something that they are in, but or allowed to participate in. But yeah, to get to your point, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, let's put it this way: if Israel is allowed to do that, what about Palestine? No, Palestinians, are they allowed to participate in the Euro Cup? Could you imagine that? People go like, huh? What? Do you think Palestine would be allowed into the African Union? Palestine doesn't even have full fucking member status at the UN. Right? They're not even a full state in the UN, which is to me the biggest scandal of the UN. I mean, the UN has, which is saying something, the UN has a lot of shortcomings, which is putting it mildly. But this is the most scandalous thing to me. Like, you can't come here and tell me that Palestine is not a state. I'm not tolerating this bullshit. It's insane how Israel is not just allocated land that belongs to Palestinians and Syrians and Lebanese, and it's given special treatment by the UK, by the US, by most of the Western world, by the UN. The UN also gives Israel special treatment because there are so many UN resolutions, UN Security Council resolutions that are passed telling Israel to get the fuck out of the countries that they've invaded, the Jerusalem law, for example, that they annexed Jerusalem. It's a lot of condemnations, but they don't actually translate into anything. It's just, it's blah, blah. No action is ever taken. And this is, of course, because you have veto power with the US, and that really speaks to the fundamental flaws of the UN. But on top of all the special treatment that we just talked about, as you said, they get to participate in international events, organizations, unions, which is obscene. What is Israel doing in the African Union? Well, I can tell you why. I mean, why they want to be in it, what their motives are behind this is because they want to rehabilitate themselves. They want to appear as a legitimate country, right? So, which is really incredible. So while they're denying Palestinians a country, they're taking the Palestinian land and trying to portray themselves as a nation instead of a settler colony, right? So by entering the African Union, even just observer status, so not as a full member, but just as observer status, this grants them legitimacy. This grants them prestige. You know, this grants them some sort of legitimization, and makes them appear more legitimate in the eyes of the world. It's true. You know, that's what they're trying to do. Not in my eyes, in any case, but in most eyes is my point. And you know, they deprive Palestinians of the same thing. Like I said, Palestine isn't even a full UN member, never mind an observer in the African Union. It's crazy, right? This is their whole campaign to make themselves look more legitimate while they're crushing Palestinian rights, taking the Palestinian land, preventing Palestinians from having their own state. Yeah, it's incredible, you know. Check Zero List says NATO in Africa training Al-Shabaab. Well, that's not all they're doing. Yeah, they're doing a lot of shit in Africa. NATO, I mean, not just NATO, but, you know, I would say specifically in NATO, I would say specifically the US, the UK, and NATO at large, they've many projects in Africa, not just now, but for quite a while. So if you look at Somalia, for example, I did a video on Somalia trying to break down the situation there. Have you guys ever watched Black Hawk Down? Let's talk about Black Hawk Down in a second. So tell me, have you guys ever watched Black Hawk Down? So, you know, when I was growing up, this is a movie where I enjoyed it because the production quality is good. That's, you know, an objective or perhaps subjective fact, but, you know, it is good production quality. But once you get older and you start realizing what the motives are behind this movie, who wrote the movie, who's funding the movie, what is the message being conveyed here, then you start to realize what's going on, right? So you have a whole military entertainment complex, and Black Hawk Down is a film that was co-written by the Pentagon. Really, like literally, the Pentagon co-wrote the script. And in exchange for that, what the producers get in exchange for letting the Pentagon write the movie is they get free equipment, free gear, helicopters, tanks, whatever they need to shoot the movie. Not everything, not 100%, but a lot. You know, it's to a point where it's saving a ton of money for the studio. It's saving a ton of money for the producers, and it's also, you know, paving relations for future funding and so on, but you get the idea. And this is insane, because if another country did this, if China, for example, the Chinese military was funding Chinese movies to paint the Chinese army in a good way, you know, it would take the average American 1 second to say, that's propaganda, right? But when the United States does it, no one gives a shit. Actually, no one knows, rather. It's not talked about very often. And of course, Black Hawk Down is just one movie. There are, for example, many other popular ones. Top Gun, obviously. I mean, I think it's so obvious you don't even need to really, you don't need me to confirm that for you. Top Gun, certainly. I'm blanking right now, but Call of Duty, I'm pretty sure. Doom, you know, there are many titles, video games as well, that are in some way co-produced, co-written with the Department of Defense, or Offense, as it should be called. And this is really incredible, right? Because when we look at Black Hawk Down, we look at Somalia, the story that they're telling. When they open the movie, you have the opening credits. In Black Hawk Down, they have a little, like a bunch of text telling you what's going on in Somalia at this point in time in 1993. And they're trying to, you know, they're giving you some background info, some context, so you understand the rest of the movie. And they're telling you, like, who's the bad guy and all this stuff. And what I love the most about Black Hawk Down, about this part in the intro, because this takes place in October 1993, okay? 3 months before, so in July 1993, just a few months before, right? They casually left this out of the introduction. They casually forget to tell you that a few months ago, the United States committed one of the most horrific war crimes, where they massacred, I think, over 50 people They killed 50 to 60 people. They wounded some 200. Just a bloodbath, literally a bloodbath. And that's what the journalists and the NGOs who were there at the time described it. A bloodbath, a massacre. And they don't mention that in the movie. And it's related to the movie. It's related to the story because, when the United States massacred the 50 plus Somalis, the 200 Somalis that were, wounded also, this turned a lot of public opinion against the Americans. And so, when you had this helicopter crash, you had these events that take place in Black Hawk Down, a lot of that hatred comes from the massacre they just carried out a few months ago. They don't tell you that. Instead, what do? They portray all of the Somalis as these zombies, like these barbarians who are just screaming the whole time and running around with machetes and machine guns. Like, they always do this. They did this in Argo. If you watch that movie about Iran, you see the protesters outside the U.S. Embassy. It's like, even the front cover of the movie, they paint Iranians as zombies. And in Black Hawk Down, they do the same thing with the Somalis. They try to dehumanize them in a way. And, of course, yeah, it's war, so people are angry and so on. But it's different. There's a message here. And you can see that with the way that they omit certain facts and the way they portray certain people. And it's always this kind of idea that, these people are the bad guys, they're savages, they just hate freedom, right? Like George Bush said, and we are the good guys, and we are the civilized white man, and the white man is going to come in on the with his shining armor and save the day. No, that's not what happened. And unfortunately, this was actually a part of a UN mission when the United States did that. So they were carrying out a UN mission in Somalia, and it's part of that mission where they massacred these people, right? Which is, it's not only an atrocity, but it voids the entire purpose. In any case, it's really interesting because the massacre happened because they were going to get a famous warlord, and they thought that he would be there, and he wasn't, and instead they ended up killing a bunch of clan leaders and civilians and unarmed people, just, regular Somalis. And this is what's been happening in the war on terror. It's just like the drone strikes. They always think, oh, okay, this guy's going to be here. We're going to go hit this car or this wedding. Yeah, they don't care. And they think it's worth it because they're going to get a certain individual. And they never do, right? Just to give you an example, the Interior Minister, Suraj ad-Din Haqqani is his name. How many times did they try to kill him? They've killed over 100 people trying to get him. They never got him. He's the interior minister now for the Taliban in Afghanistan. Right? And even if they had gotten him, how do you justify killing 100 people to get one guy? Which is what they did with others, right? They've killed many Pakistani Taliban and Afghani Taliban commanders and leaders. And in the process, they carried out dozens of drone strikes and killed 200 people. They even bombed a funeral. Obama thought that some guy from the Taliban was going to be at a funeral, and ironically, the funeral was for someone who was killed by another drone strike. And Obama bombed this funeral and killed 80 people at the funeral. I mean, how fucking depraved do you have to be? This is... I don't have the words, man. I did a whole video about this, about drone strikes, and you should really watch that because I talked about these specific cases, how many people they killed. I went into lots of detail. It's on RT. It's also on my channel. You should really watch it because this is so emblematic of the war on terror. And before that, even as I'm talking about with Somalia, for example, they always think that, oh, we can massacre a bunch of civilians because it's worth it. It's not. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't care. They just go in and they think that everyone is collateral damage. This is the status quo. This is the norm and the mantra. And so, just a few weeks ago, or now it's a little over a month, when Biden killed the Ahmadi family, again, this was not an anomaly. And the insane thing is that if the New York Times had not talked about this, if the mainstream media hadn't picked it up, and it's a good thing they did, I wish they would do that all the time, the Biden administration would have continued lying about it. So just imagine what else they've been lying about because the media abdicated their duty to the truth. They abdicated their duty to cover these things thoroughly. So many of them, they love war. They run off to embed themselves with squads and units in Afghanistan and Iraq, but how many of them are actually covering it thoroughly? So this is really emblematic of the policy, and I think it extends beyond the war on terror. But the war on terror is really, it's the thing we're living through right now. It started in 2001, so I remember 9/11, and we're still in it. They left Afghanistan, so they say, but the war on terror is still ongoing. The 2001 AUMF is still in place. All of these policies predate it and are still in place and will continue to be in place. So anyway, I know I went off on a bit of a tangent, but also not really. I just wanted to circle back to the military entertainment complex that we were talking about. I mean, look, man, there's nothing wrong with enjoying some video games and movies, but you have to understand who made them, why they made them. And then, you can understand, there's an agenda here. Because if someone else had done that, if China or Russia had co-written, not just the government, the military, literally the Defense Department is writing the script, you would call that propaganda if it happened in another country. Right? And you can take a guess. I'll let you guess which war movies were not written by the Pentagon and did not receive any free shit from the DoD. Right? Deer Hunter, Platoon. So yeah, they didn't get any free shit because they're anti-war movies. So yeah, the condition for getting free helicopters and things like that is basically you have to be, you have to be a director or a producer who's making a pro-war movie. You have to paint the U.S. military in a good light. You can't talk about their war crimes, right? Damn, all these people are just inexplicably mad at us for shooting fucking Hellfire missiles. Well, not back then, they didn't have Hellfire missiles, but I'm talking about Black Hawk Down. Why are these people so mad? We're just coming to shoot at them. Why do they hate us? So this is really messed up. They paint everyone else. If you watch Vietnam War movies, by the way, it's not just about Iran and Somalia. If you watch the Vietnam War movies, they also paint the Vietnamese as these zombies, like these savages, right? Like the white man is civilized and he's the one who is here for democracy and all this shit, and everyone else who opposes them is a fucking savage and they're a zombie, and they portray them like zombies because this is conditioning. This is what you call brainwashing is another word for it. But this is conditioning. It's programming people to have a bias, to harbor certain sentiments towards groups of people, towards countries. Half the time they don't even know where the fuck they are on the map. And this is dangerous. It's very dangerous because this is manufacturing consent for war. I know the news does that enough, but in the media it's also there too, because if you dehumanize an enemy, or rather a victim, if we're using the right word, if you dehumanize them enough and you desensitize the population to that, then it makes war much easier because you have no opposition, or you'll have less opposition on the home front. So it plays a huge role, besides making money, of course, for Hollywood, but it plays a huge role for the military. They benefit greatly from this as well. And it's important to talk about this. It doesn't mean that no other country in the world makes pro-war movies, but America is home to Hollywood, which is, except for Pinewood Studios in the UK, which is not really as big as it was, but Hollywood is the movie capital, is the entertainment capital of the world. And so, we have to talk about these movies, especially given that the United States is not just home to Hollywood, but home to the military-industrial complex that dominates international affairs and U.S. foreign policy. So yes, these things are related, and they have a huge impact, not just in the U.S., but abroad as well. So, yeah. Kinky says, watch The Deer Hunter. I concur. I agree with that. Great movie. It's a great movie. It has Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and who else is in it? The soundtrack is amazing. I think it won 7 Oscars. It's just a brilliant picture. You should really watch it. It's really great. I think the first half of the movie is like a giant Russian Orthodox wedding, which is, or it was an Orthodox wedding at least. I can't remember. I haven't seen it in 10 years, but I don't remember if it was a Russian wedding. But it's a huge wedding, and the Vietnam War part doesn't start until a bit after. But you should watch the whole thing. It's really so great, amazing acting, production, everything. So Roxanne says Platoon. Platoon is also great. Oliver Stone directed it. You have it also won a bunch of Oscars, right? The soundtrack is magnificent. You have Willem Dafoe, Forrest Whitaker, Johnny Depp, Charlie Sheen, who plays the star role. Lots of great actors, you know? Claudia is confirming it was a Russian Orthodox wedding. Good. I just wanted to be 100% sure. Thank you. So see, my memory didn't fail me. That's good. I mean, Oliver Stone is, of course, as many of you know, he's a great anti-war activist, you know, and movie producer. He didn't just make Platoon; he's made lots of other good things. And yeah, so. Sage Fun, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, says Oliver Stone has a new JFK documentary out. Yes, that's true. I was looking for it a few months ago, and it wasn't out yet. Is it out already? Because I was kind of annoyed. I was like, shit, it's not out. People are talking about it. I thought I could watch it now. It wasn't out. Let me double check, because I ended up watching another one. Who produced that one? It was huge. I'm hesitant to say that it was the History Channel, because, you know, the History Channel are not exactly really good at doing history anymore. But this was surprisingly good. But let me just check for Oliver Stone to see if his documentary about JFK is out. So, I mean, you guys know he made a film with Kevin Costner called JFK, which is an old one. I think it was Kevin Costner, right? But this is a documentary. It's a bit different. So it's called JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass. I don't know if it's out yet, though. Oh, okay. It says it was released in July at the Cannes Film Festival. But again, usually, you know, we don't have tickets to the Cannes Film Festival, so I don't know what that means for us plebs. You know, I don't know when it's going to come out, but they're saying on Wikipedia that it will come out in late 2021 in the UK and Ireland. I don't know about the US, but I would assume at the same time. If you guys know more, please let me know, because I would very much like to watch it as soon as possible. That would be good. So yeah. Full Metal Jacket, I suppose, is also, you know, it's a Stanley Kubrick film, right? It's also quite anti-war, very much anti-war. Although some parts, of course, I think if you're can be maybe impressionable in the wrong way. But yeah, you know, if you watch the movie, you'll likely be disillusioned with anything glorious about war. It's nothing nice. Zamani sent me a tip on Rockvin. Thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate it. You're very kind, and I'm glad we got tons of people watching on Rockvin. That is wonderful. That's great. So yeah, I mean, I just got done doing this episode on Lebanon. I got so fucking pissed off, man, because the attack itself is disturbing enough, but when you see people trying to justify it, it's really sick. How many times have you heard the media saying, oh my God, look at Cuba, they're cracking down on protesters. Oh my God, the Syrian regime is butchering protesters. The Iranian regime is killing protesters. They always care about protesters being killed when it suits their agenda. Even actually when they're not being killed, they sometimes just fabricate the whole thing. But when it's Hezbollah or Ahmad protesters being killed, unarmed, peaceful protesters, they don't give a fuck. So what does that tell you? This tells you that they are not only biased, but they lack empathy, and, you know, they just don't even view these people as human beings, you know? The victims, they just don't give a shit, because, oh, it doesn't suit our agenda, we won't even talk about it. And I think it's so telling, right? You look at the headline, like, what year is this from? What year is this from? I have no idea what this is in reference to. It could be any year in Lebanon. So anyway, you know what? I want to talk about something else quickly, which I think is really important. It's about food, and it's related to politics. Because I saw this earlier, and this really fucking pissed me off. So let's take a look, because you guys need to understand something. Like, this is not a game. This is not a joke. I'm just getting this ready for you. Give me a second. Okay, so Okay, here we go. Y'all ready? Let's do it. I saw this post on Twitter from an Israeli page, and I want to show it to you. So they're saying here that menaish, because this dish is called menaish or menakish. It's an Arabic dish. And they're saying that this is part of, it's commonly found in Israeli cuisine and so on. I mean, this is insulting. This is ridiculous. I want to show you what I wrote on Twitter. I said, this is what you call cultural appropriation and theft. Israel trying to pass off menaish, a purely Syrian and Levantine dish, as Israeli food. And it's true. I've seen them do this with hummus. I've seen them do this with falafel. This is not a joke. This is not like over one tweet. This is something you see in supermarkets. You sometimes see falafel or you see hummus, and you see it's made by an Israeli company, and they're trying to pass it off as Israeli food. There's sometimes you go to an international, like if you have an international food stand, right? And you have all these dishes from every country. The Israelis, they have Arabic food at their stand, which is, I mean, what the fuck am I supposed to say, right? The level of theft, it has no end. There's no end to it, And they do this with hummus, they do this with falafel, and now menaish. And I was already angry about the hummus and falafel. I'm kind of used to that, but I saw menaish. I was like, what? This is a Syrian dish. And of course, I got Hadi in the comments who said it's Lebanese and that he will fight me about it. But okay, this is funny. Like, between Arabs, we joke about this, right? I'm nimzah. It's okay. Like, I don't mind if someone Lebanese says it's Lebanese or someone Palestinian says Palestinian. Yeah, it's, we have a common culture. But an Israeli, I mean, what are they talking about? What do settler colonizers have to do with our food? Which this is what it's about, man. This is about not just cultural appropriation, but theft, and on every degree, right? So they're not only stealing the land, the Palestinian land, most of all, they're stealing the Syrian land, Golan Heights, Lebanese land, Shib'a farms, but also the food. So again, this is part of the plan to sort of legitimize themselves. They want to appear like, look, we have a cuisine, we have our own cuisine, we have our own dishes, we have our own our own history, and then they take archaeological digs and ruins and try to claim them as their own. I saw this just the other day. They found a winery. Some archaeologists dug up a winery in Gaza, right? It was wine from Gaza, and they were saying it's Israeli. I've also heard stories about archaeological digs. So we're talking about antiquities and archaeological finds being taken from Iraq, being taken from Syria to Israel, so that the Israelis can claim them as their own. But you can see this is like a trend. It's not a one-off thing. This is something that they do constantly, right? And then they go and they join the African Union, and then they go and try to, like we were talking about earlier, they want to participate in European things. They try in every possible way to legitimize the settler colony and paint it as a country. They want everyone to fall for this idea that it's not a colonization project. It's not a white supremacist colonizer project created by Europeans. No, it's just a nation that happens to be there, and everyone is being irrational. And oh, by the way, have you tried our menaish? This is messed up, and it's not about food. You need to understand something. Like, it's not about sharing food. You go ahead and eat it, sahtan wa hana. But when you claim something as your own, and you're trying to fabricate a culture, because again, Zionism is a political ideology. Barely 100 years old. Israel itself, our grandmothers were older than Israel. Allah yarhamun. So, yeah, they're trying to come here and make you think that this is native to them. No, these people are most of them, they come from around the world, from Europe, from wherever. They're not native to this area. Never mind, any connection to menaish or something. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm not going to tolerate this. And you know, there's actually a meme underneath, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and it says, to call hummus a traditional Israeli dish constitutes aggression. Yeah, 100%. I know people use that as a meme, but it's true, and this is something to be talked about, because again, you know, it's theft and appropriation on multiple levels: the land, the culture, the food, and trying to legitimize the occupation. This is really the crux of the issue. It's not about, you know, pastries or you know, menaish or something. It's that's just one part of it. So there you go. And you know, I mean, Arabs themselves can't even agree on whose it is, right? So Lebanese will say no, it's Lebanese, and Syrians say no, it's Syrian, and Palestinians say no, it's Palestinian. You know, depending on what it is, and you know, they will fight over who can make the best one. So Arabs don't even know whose it is between Arabs. Never mind Israelis. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. By the way, I want to show you one more thing underneath. I forgot to show you this underneath. Check this out. This is one more thing over here. So this is a comment underneath the post saying they're trying to take Shirazi salad and rename it to Israeli salad. The name literally translates to salad from Shiraz, as in Shiraz, Iran. How are they going to take something that has a GPS tracker in its name? Shirazi salad is as old as the date tomatoes arrived to Iran. So again, this is, you know, it's a common theme, a recurring theme. You feel me? Anyway, I know we didn't come here to talk about food, but I'm hungry now. So I need to go get some menaish. But I saw some of you mentioning... Plain Breaker says, who can make the best menaish? Want to bet your life? Syrians. What do you expect me to say? Of course Syrians make the best menaish. I mean, I'm not such a huge fan of za'atar anyway, which I know is a cardinal sin. But, you know, all kinds of fatayr, all kinds of menaish, the best ones are made in Damascus, in Syria. This is a fact. I don't care. I'm going to start a civil war now. No, I'm only kidding. Don't come for me. But so one of you mentioned tabbouleh. Many people like tabbouleh. I prefer fattoush, which is again probably a cardinal sin, but I'm a bigger fan of fattoush. So anyway, Plain Breaker says it was rhetorical. Yeah, well, you know, I had to say that it's Syria. I had to say that it's Syria. So Claudia has mentioned knafe. Knafe is great, and I know for a fact that this is Palestinian because it comes from, you know, another name for knafe is Nablus, and that's Nablus, which is in Palestine, right? Which is a city in Palestine. So, I mean, just from the name, you know it's Palestinian. Although I've never been to Palestine. I haven't tried a Palestinian-made one. I've only tried the one in Syria, of course, and I love it very much. Knafe is just the bomb. It's the best. And you know, of course, Palestinians made it. It's amazing. So Martin says, I like ice cream. Well, if you go to Damascus, there are two famous ice cream shops. Well, the two most famous ones, let's say, Umayya and Bakdash. So Bakdash is in the Suq al-Hamidiyya. It's in the Hamidiyya market, or bazaar rather. And it's right in the middle. And they make the ice cream from milk. You can see them. They have these giant sticks, and they mold it, or I don't know what the correct terminology is for ice cream manufacturing, but you can see them making the ice cream from scratch in the shop in front of you, and it's the best thing in the world. And then they put pistachios on top. Oh man, I would kill for one of those right now. And the other shop is Umayya. So Umayya have a bit more selection of ice cream flavors and stuff, and they're also amazing, but they're in a different area. So Belinda says, so much for fasting today. Thank you guys. My tummy is rumbling away now. Me too. I really need everything I just mentioned and more. RP McMurphy says Sykes-Picot sure did instill that imaginary divide. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I've talked about this many times before on the channel, but I think it's always a good time to bring it up because we are still living with Sykes-Picot. You know, this partition, this carving up of the Middle East, right? You have the French and the British who just carved up the Middle East the way they liked, and they did it. I mean, it's so disgusting. They just basically said, yeah, you can have this. You know, the British, you can have Palestine, and you know, you can have Iraq, and you know, we'll share some bits over here. And the French, you can have Lebanon and Syria, and you know, just literally carving up the land how they see fit, and sharing it, just straight up colonial bullshit. And they still do that now. People just don't understand. They're still doing this now by supporting separatist movements. When they go to China and they say, we support the Xinjiang separatism, we support the separatist movement, not just with Xinjiang, but also with Taiwan. You know, this is an attempt to fracture China. When they go to Syria and then they say, we support an independent Kurdistan, and we won't force the Israelis to give back the Golan Heights, and we're not going to do anything about Turkey occupying Idlib, which basically means that Syria has been carved into 4 pieces now. This is also, you know, it's a continuation of the divide and conquer, literally divide and conquer, physically, literally. And they don't give a fuck about the movements they're pretending to support. You know that, right? Like you saw when Trump, you know, left northern Syria, how people viewed this as abandoning the Kurds, right? They're still with the Kurds, the SDF and the US. They're still working together in eastern Syria, but nevertheless, you know, people saw it as such because, of course, Turkey is, you know, views the SDF and, you know, they view the Kurdish militias in Syria as an extension of the Kurds in Turkey, and they view them both as terrorists and want to kill them, right? So they put the Kurds in danger. They knew that, you know, this is completely dangerous because Turkey might go and start killing them, which is what they've done that. And this shows you that they don't give a shit at the end of the day. And the same thing with all the other separatist movements that they support. They don't really care. And when you see this also in Eastern Europe, you see this also in you know, in Hong Kong, they always support these movements because they want to divide and conquer. So, you know, it's a continuous strategy. But Sykes-Picot is really, I think, you know, some people say that, I mean, commonly, if you ask the average person, what are the most important events of the 20th century? You know, some people will say maybe, you know, well, certainly World War II and the Cold War, but individual events. So, for example, the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yes, and this is all true, but some people that, you know, some things that people something that people gloss over is Sykes-Picot, because this was really something that has consequences till this day. This division of the Middle East. And they did this in other continents too. They did this in Africa as well, right? Latin America. So, but Sykes-Picot was specifically 1917, so after World War I, or after they got the Ottoman Empire out. So this is something that has ramifications to this day. That's how impactful it is. That's how damaging it is, right? So they carved up the Middle East. They created a bunch of countries, and one of those, of course, afterwards, we knew they had the Balfour Declaration at the same time in secret to create Israel, and you know, drive a wedge, quite physically, quite literally, between Arabs. You just look at the map; it's really, you know, quite obvious. So this is really an important event of the 20th century, which is often overlooked. I cannot overstate the importance of it. I really cannot. So AM says, Sykes-Picot is the big boss of divide and conquer tactics. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Connie says, I can't get Rockfin to work on my TV right now, but I'm paying for Rockfin, so that's what matters. Thank you very much, Connie, first of all, for supporting the show. May I ask what TV you're watching on? Because I can write to the tech guys and maybe ask them, because I remember you guys were telling me there was no Android app, and I think they released one, right? I was emailing them about them. I told them, like, I relayed your messages in the comments, and I believe they got it done. So let me know what that is, and I'll pass it along, and hopefully it will work. And I'm very grateful for your support. That's really more valuable than anything. So Martin says, what are you Middle Easterners doing on our oil? Yeah, that's a good one. It's like, why did you put your country so close to our bases? Yeah. So if you'll just allow me, I'm just trying to check the other donations here because I don't want to miss anyone. I think I covered everything, so that's okay. All right, guys. We got one actually on something on PayPal. I'm sorry, this is from 20 minutes ago. I didn't see it yet. You'll excuse me. It's loading. 1 second. This is from Zach. Thank you very much, Zach. He writes, the popular game right now, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, has a mission where you have to set up snipers along the highway of death from Iraq, but they say that it was committed by the Russians. They put real war crimes committed by the USA and blame them on enemies in their video games. I mean, what am I supposed to say, man? I'm not surprised. I'm disgusted, but I'm not surprised. And this reminds me of what we covered a few months ago. I don't know if you recall this. They released a game, a new video game. I think it's an independent studio. It's not one of the big ones like Treyarch and Activision, but it's called Fallujah, right? So it's supposed to be a remake of the, I think the second Battle of Fallujah, which was in 2004. And so, of course, what is the most notable thing about this battle is that they destroyed the city. I mean, when I say destroyed, they leveled dozens of mosques. Fallujah is known as the city of mosques. They completely destroyed several of them. They dropped so many chemical weapons that people have. The birth rate defects in Fallujah are some of the highest in the world. It's worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where 2 nukes were dropped. What does that tell you? Congenital heart disease, it's 15 times higher than in Europe. It's really messed up. I cannot even show you the pictures because it's so heartbreaking. And this is a result of the Battle of Fallujah. And in the game, not only is it so sick and depraved to want to recreate what was essentially a massacre, a butchering, the devastation of a city, a permanent devastation, because when we say that there are birth defects, these birth defects are happening now, almost 20 years after the battle. That's how much radiation is in the city. And people didn't know. At least in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people knew, stay the fuck away from that. Obviously that doesn't make it any better. But in Fallujah, people had no clue that there's depleted uranium. They didn't understand what's white phosphorus because the U.S. denied all of this. So they've been living there. People have been living in the city and getting their DNA corrupted, and then their kids are born with these horrific birth defects. It's worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Can you imagine? This is. War crime is putting it mildly. This is a crime against humanity, plain and simple. I don't give a fuck what you were doing. Like, who was in the city that you had to make it permanently, radio? You had to give people birth defects. Like, was Hitler there? What the fuck were you doing? This is a crime against humanity. What they did. It was a bloodbath, and it has long-lasting effects. There's no justification for this, none. And my point is, just going back to this video game, that's not in the game. So we know the United States used chemical weapons, and they say, no, we're not glorifying Fallujah, we're recreating it for realistic purposes, but there's no war, there's no chemical weapons. So their idea of realism is glorifying a massacre while leaving out the very real, the very factual use of chemical weapons, of depleted uranium, which have caused massive birth defects and suffering. So, what a bunch of fucking tossers, honestly. What a bunch of tossers. So that says it all, right? And when you tell me this, I'm not surprised. When you say Black Ops, though, No, sorry, you said Modern Warfare. Again? They remade it or what? Because that came out when I was like 15 or something. When I was, what was that, 2008? I don't play these. I don't have time anymore to play video games, unfortunately. So I don't know if this is a new one with the same name, but or if you're referencing the old one, because I can't remember, honestly. I really can't remember anything. Oh yeah, I see. This came out in 2019, so I guess that was a new one. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun with video games, but you really, like I said, you have to understand who made them, why they made them, what's being left out. Yeah, you have, because a lot of people say these games are cool because they give you historical insight and stuff. Yeah, that's true to a certain degree, but you're not giving you the full picture. You know what I'm saying? They don't give you the full picture a lot of the times. They don't give you both sides of it. That's important to have. But anyway, I'm not surprised by that they would try to pin this on, you know. I'm trying to find the chat window again. I'm gone. So, thank you. Just want to say thank you for the donation, Zach. I appreciate it very much. And we got one over here, I think, from Neil. Neil says, could you have Aisha of the Historically podcast on your show? A terrific lefty commentator. So I'm swamped at the moment, but I'll do my best because I always ask you guys to suggest me guests. So duly noted. And I know the podcast is good stuff. And we have also someone, hold on, this is loading. This is from Ariel. So Ariel just signed up to support the show on Patreon. As usual, I play a crab dance for everyone who joins on Patreon. So put your hands together for Ariel. This is for you.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Man, I just love the way he goes completely green. So I turned on the green in honor of his face. Damn it, his name, I completely forgot his name. Who's the journalist that Biden was yelling at, whose face just went green? Damn it. I'm waiting for someone to drop it in the comments. His name's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember his goddamn name. Anyway, you guys have been sending beautiful crabs in the comments. That's, I mean, crab emojis. There's a distinction. Crab emojis. So Ed O'Keefe, that was the name. Ed O'Keefe. Thank you so much. That was it. So that's what I wanted to have. Thanks, Noor, and also Miguel. Ed O'Keefe was his name. Okay, so I don't know if it was just as green as his face, but it's okay. So we're gonna flip back to here. Magic. So Holly says Biden turned green. No. He was yelling why at Ed O'Keefe, who's a journalist, and I made his face turn green in the remix. So I wanted to turn the background green in honor of Ed O'Keefe's face. But anyway, do you guys remember when we had the huge flag in the background, and then we did the election coverage? That was fun. I mean, when I say it was fun, you know, the election coverage isn't exactly the most good thing for, you know, the best thing for your for your mind, but I'm glad we did it because it was important to do, and I don't know if I have it in me to cover another primary. We'll see. In any case, thank you very much, Ariel. Thank you for supporting the show. I just have one last message before I bounce. If you guys want to support the show, the links are all below. That rhymes. No, but seriously, this is your go-to for international news, foreign policy, you name it, and we need your support to keep independent media going. I'm going to leave the Patreon and PayPal below, and I'm very grateful for your donations. And I hope the live stream, especially on Lebanon, was informative. So this is the Venmo, the CashApp, the PayPal. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. And thank you guys so much for all your kind words. And it's great chatting with you. It's great spending time together. And even though the things we're covering are not exactly the most pleasant, but still, it's important. So there you go. I'll just leave all these links below, and I won't spam you too much, but I do have to plug the show. So there we go. Alrighty. So that's the thing, and the Patreon is also here. So with that said, Ed O'Keefe is now my background. And I'll leave all the links below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. And just, you know, thanks so much for supporting the show. I couldn't do this without you. Take care. Ma'as salame. Bye-bye.